Hello? Can you hear me? Great. From Finland with love. I know most of you are wondering, why Finland? Well, I've lived in Finland for like 8 years now, if I'm correct. And I like to say, thank you. I'm still working on my Finnish, so pardon me. Yeah, I like to think of myself more of like a storyteller than a presenter. So just bear with me. This is a story. Obviously, I'm going to walk you through the story. So imagine this. You're responsible for a critical system, right? And it's running smoothly. Then one day, you find out that the database version that your system depends on will actually receive some security updates, and database will no longer be patched or no longer supported. What do you do? Obviously, that's the question. So let's start with this important question. How often do you upgrade your database in a production environment? Has anyone been in that situation before? At least one hand, two-ish. Well, if your answer is not often, well, you're not alone. But this time is different, and here's why. Database upgrades are often postponed due to the perceived risk and complexities. But as I'll show you, like I said, it's a story. I'll show you how prop testing can actually make this process much safer. Upgrading a production database is a lot like repairing a car while it's speeding down the highway. It's complicated, it's risky, and everyone is counting on you to not mess it up. In our case, we are running Amazon RDS for PostgreSQL, and we knew an upgrade was necessary. The stakes, security vulnerabilities, and compliance risk if we didn't act. But just like any good story, we had a plan. I pulled this up. I like memes. Never mind. So this is just a scenario, right? This is literally what happened when we got the news. Like you can see the third picture there, the expression on the face, right? So our database was on PostgreSQL 11, version 11, which was approaching its end of life date. So imagine getting this notice saying no more repairs after these dates. It was clear we had to upgrade to version 14 or higher to stay secure and supported. But the big question was, would the upgrade work seamlessly in production environments? And I know some people might be thinking, isn't 101 test 101 do not test in production, right? Well, we actually had a solution. We had a plan. We had a copy environment, which is similar to a production environment. So that will actually be our guinea pig before any upgrade is done. So we didn't want to roll the dice and upgrade without knowing how the system would, perform under load. That's where RF Swarm came in. Is anyone familiar with RF Swarm? Anyone used it? A few hands. Thank you. So RF Swarm came in, a tool that allows us to run realistic load testing on the database before and after the upgrade. It gave us confidence that we aren't actually walking into an unknown territory. So I like to think of RF Swarm as a superhero. Remember earlier I mentioned this was a story, and the superhero here wasn't me. Obviously, RF Swarm was the superhero. Because let's be honest, every good story needs one, right? RF Swarm works hand in hand with Robot Framework, a tool we were already using. So personally, I'm responsible for automating our test cases. We already had Robot Framework running with Browser Library and other libraries, of course. Thank you. So it allowed us to simulate real-world traffic without writing complicated scripts or making changes to our test framework. It was fast, efficient, and just what we needed. Yeah, I actually like the fact that it was efficient, faster than caffeinated developer. Any developers here? Sorry, I had to just chip that in. Right. So remember I said we had a copy environment. We didn't actually test in production. We had a copy environment. So before we touch the database, we ran what I call the calm before the storm test. We wanted to know exactly how the system behaved before the upgrade. What was the CPU doing? How long did it take to fetch data? How much memory do we have left? These baseline numbers would be our compass during the entire journey. So basically, the present version 11, we had to do a load testing on it just to see how it works. Obviously, these have been serving our customers for quite some time. We need to know. Think of these metrics as our story supporting characters. We had the superhero, which was our Swim. Now these are the supporting characters. It's a story, like I said. CPU utilization. Was it working over time or cruising? Read latency. How fast could we get our data? Free memory. Do we have room to spare? Those are good questions to actually ask. By tracking these metrics, we're able to identify potential issues before they could become villains in our upgrade story. Like I said, stories. Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Datadog. Some hands, thank you. Yeah, so Datadog became our eyes and ears. It gave us real-time insights and helped us visualize the impact of the test we're running. With each test, we learned something new about how our database would handle upgrade under load. If you can look closely, you can see some metrics. Obviously, there's lots of metrics there, but CPU utilization and other things, we actually got this information from Datadog. Right. Once the upgrade was complete, it was time for the moment of truth. We put the system under the same test pre-upgrade as before. This was our chance to see if the upgrade was a hero or a villain. Like I said, it's a story. We need to know. We already know our hero. We're looking for a villain, right? Thankfully, PostgreSQL 11.4 held steady. Even under peak load, it performed like a champ, and we didn't see any signs of performance degradation. It turns out PostgreSQL 15.4, just as good, it was better. It wasn't just good, it was actually better than version 11. Complex queries were fast, and overall performance was more consistent. It was like upgrading from an old car to a brand new sports car. Although our system administrator will disagree, but anyways, it was better. So we could actually breathe easy knowing that the system was actually working as it should. Great. Well, our journey had a happy ending, but it wasn't luck that gave us this happy ending. It was actually preparation, testing, and the right tools. RS Swarm and Robot Framework gave us confidence at every step of the way. If there's one thing I can actually say or take away from this story, it's that database upgrades don't have to be scary. Yeah. With the right approach, there can be opportunities to make your system even better. Thank you. And questions and suggestions?
I'm running, I know. Late. Last year I was late multiple times, so get used to it. Questions?
Hi, thank you. It's a really great talk. I'm a current developer of the database library. That's why I'm wondering if you were using this library for connecting Robot Framework to the database, or were you using some other solution?
You mean database library?
Yeah.
No, we didn't use database library. So basically, the idea was to simulate real usage. So using the application from the UI perspective and seeing how the database performs. So basically, we had agents from Datadog running in the database, giving us just metrics. So basically, that was the slide with the Datadog. So the metrics that came.
So you didn't run any SQL queries from your tests?
No.
All right. Thank you.
So how large was the database in question? Like, was that an issue that the database for the transition to an upgraded version, was the amount of data large? Like, how big database was in question?
I can actually think of the specifics. I'm the tester, sorry. I'm just a tester here. The database administration knows those basics, but it was actually huge. We have customers in US market, we have in Europe, and also some part of Asia. It was quite huge, and it was actually a big deal for us to do this upgrade. And and after the upgrade, everything was actually very good. No issues at all.
And follow-up question: how many clients you had in the Swarm?
I did run this test in AWS as well. I used two EC2 instance, T2 large, if I remember correctly. I don't exactly know how many agents were running, but we're pretty much optimized based on the load we needed.
There's. Right. You were apparently very happy with the performance of our Swarm, but do you have any comparison for its performance versus something like LoadRunner or JMeter? I mean, for a given set of hardware, how much load can you generate with RF Swarm compared to the other tools?
Yeah, great question. When we had this issue, we thought about different tools to use for the load testing. Since we already use Robot framework, it was easy for us to just integrate with RF Swarm. So we didn't actually go into checking how the tool works. So I don't really know for sure like how they compare, but in our use case, RF Swarm actually gave us the result we wanted.
Was there, at least there's one question. Yes. You're next.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering, are you now upgrading your database more frequently?
No.
And do you... Okay. Do you use the same approach for the more incremental updates? Because this was a big jump from, I don't recall, 11 to 14 or something. But if you keep up, do you use the same approach if you do?
Yes, it will work seamlessly if we want to. We just had, basically, before I joined the company, they were using version 11. And obviously, nobody really wants to upgrade their database if there's no issue. But the issue came that, you have to leave version 11. What do I have to do? Upgrade. Like I mentioned, I asked the question, how many people do database upgrade? Not everyone literally comes along that problem. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Money.
One more question.
I was wondering, did you need to convince a lot of people in your team to actually do some testing on the database upgrade? Because I imagine there might be people who say, Postgres 11, Postgres 14 or 15, it will just work. Did you need to do some convincing or?
Luckily, no. I didn't pick the version. Luckily for me. We had a database administrator that did pick the version. They thought, okay, maybe we should go for this version. And before it comes to end of life, it will take longer time. So we don't have to always repeat this upgrade testing all the time. So we just went for a higher version compared to going for 14 or thereabouts. So, yeah. Just one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Great talk. I like it. Did you use any statistics from our Swarm to determine is it still performing from the user interface point of view in the same way as before the upgrade?
No, we didn't use statistics from RS1 because the statistics from the RS1, the metrics it takes the metrics from the machine you're running the agents or the manager. Yeah, so we actually wanted the metrics from the database, not from the machine it's running those agents. Yeah. Just before I go, it was a good story. If you notice, I didn't mention anything about hiccups we found or any issues. It was just everything went out good and all that. I have actually a Slack message from our database administrator when I sent him the slides. This was what he said. We did detect few query timing outs and had to optimize for few different query plans post-upgrade, actually. So basically what happened was the query they had set in place in version 11 was okay, but when we upgraded to version 15.4, he had to like optimize the query. I don't really know much about database query and all of that, but they literally had to change some code to fetch his queries. But when he did, it actually worked seamlessly. So yeah.
Thank you, Omo. Great talk.
Thank you.
Here's your new hockey shirt, jersey. Thank you. Thank you.